Alright, YouTube, it's time to talk about the inverse relationship between how religious a person is and how truly spiritual they are, or how confirmed in their faith that they feel. I've touched on this briefly before. I mentioned in another video that my theory was if a person is extremely religious, that means they're very pious. They go to church constantly. They maintain a close-knit sort of social circle around people that they attend services with, or a mosque or, synagogue or whatever. They read the Bible or the Quran or whatever constantly. They pray constantly. They continuously invoke the name of their deity. That individuals like that were actually not confirmed in their faith. That the reason that they were continuously using their religion in such a manner is because actually they felt threatened. That they feel threatened by the world around them and they're afraid of losing faith, so they continuously enshroud themselves with religion, which of course isn't the same thing necessarily as faith. I mean, you can have faith in some deity without endorsing any specific religion associated to them. For instance, the God of the Jews and the God of the Christians is assumedly the same being, but Jews do not necessarily endorse Christianity or vice versa. Even though it's the same God, they don't believe in all of the tenets of that same God's so-called commands to mankind. And that the people who are more what you would call like social or liberal religious members, those who they might or might not attend worship services. If they do, they probably do it less frequently. Or to them, the service is more, I'm going to go, I'm going to hear someone read from a book, then I'm going to have a picnic with my family or with my friends. That these people are actually much more happy. And I can speak from personal experience knowing large numbers of people from both of these groups, the extremely religious and the less religious. The less religious individuals do honestly seem to be happier. In the sense of the word of they simply are more joyous in a general notion. That they're more happy with life, that the reason that they're less religious, they don't feel the need to be, they believe in their hearts that their God loves them. That their God is essentially good and looking out for them, that they've got nothing to worry about, that they don't need to constantly go about bowing their heads and chanting to this deity out of fear of hellfire, or out of fear of losing salvation, or losing a blessing, or something like that. I think you can take this to the extreme and you can say people who are into the prosperity gospels. Of course, the prosperity gospel is a notion behind certain ministers and preachers who essentially they teach that if you give the church, aka God, in their snake oil salesman way, money, that you get more back and you can become rich as long as you have enough capital to invest to begin with. And they use various verses to support this nonsense. That these people, they're so hyper-religious, they're literally giving up anything and everything to get monetary return. The fact that this is flawed even by most Christian standards is fairly clear, but these people take that to the extreme as well. The idea of religiosity, that it plays such an intrinsic role in their life. And I've noticed something. These people who rant the loudest about their God, the stump preachers, the fire and brimstone crowd, the ones that handle snakes or stand on the street corner shouting about gays, for some odd reason, they seem to be the ones that are most often implicated in various scandals, like they're secretly having sex with gay hookers, or using drugs, or raping their cult members, because let's face it, some of these people are essentially cultists. And you've seen numerous examples of this in the past, or they're embezzling money, or they're committing fraud, or they're tied to some underhanded business, or they're mooching off of a politician in exchange for votes. You've seen this many times. You don't generally see that with liberal members of any religion, Christianity, Islam, whatever. You don't see this happening. And what I think, and as I said, it's simply a case of the people who are shouting the loudest, are actually the least religious, or the least spiritual. They're the most religious. Religion and spirituality are not the same thing. I've pointed out there's a split between you can believe in a God but not be religious. You can also be religious and not believe in a God. You can go to church and go through the motions and read the Bible and pray and not actually believe in that deity. Or you can forsake all of those things and still believe in that deity. And spirituality forms the trifecta. Of course, spirituality is not necessarily the same as believing in a God or being religious. You could be a completely independent, non-religious person, not believe in any gods, but still believe in some form of cosmic spirituality. And upon these three sort of on-off switches, you can group essentially everyone on Earth according to their own views. For instance, I am not religious. I don't belong to any religion. I'm also an atheist. I don't believe in any specific God, but I am spiritual. I have a sort of cosmic spiritual view of the world that I've never really lost, even during the time when I was a self-avowed atheist and more scientific in that atheism. I still considered myself marginally spiritual. I never had to prove to anyone by shouting on the street corner about some church or about a book that I believed these things. That the ones that are the most vocal about their religion are actually the ones that feel completely threatened by the world. They look around at the world and they see everything is evil, everything is bad. Literally everything is a threat to their spiritual nature. So they clam up and all they do is wrap themselves in layers of religion. They could live in the church and be completely happy. These are the sort of people that become monks or nuns or whatever. They don't realize that they're fooling themselves completely, because some of these people are not even theists. They're religious. They're very, very religious. They don't even believe in spiritual power or a god. And there are studies that have shown that a surprising number of priests and these people are actually completely atheistic. They don't even believe in their own god. But they're religious. And what pushed them into this religion seems to be they were afraid of losing religion, maybe for social reasons. Their family, well, our family's been Catholic for generations. Don't you dare step out of line with the Catholic Church and become a heathen, barbarian heretic. And so they feel that pressure, and they're willing to go through the motions to keep their family cohesive, but they don't believe in the God. They are a heretic. They just don't show it. Then there's no litmus test to show whether a person is a heretic. I suppose you could tell them, eat this forbidden food or something, or you can never eat it, and we see you eating it, and you're obviously a heretic. But there's no way to tell with the sort of laws that are grounded in Christianity or Judaism, certainly. There's no way to tell that a person was actually not theistic and was just going through the motions to save their own, not their soul, but essentially face. And people who are extremely, extremely religious, I've seen this time and time again. Number one, their offspring are largely atheistic. For some unknown reason. The more religious they are, not necessarily religious, heavy-handedly religious. Individuals who force their religion on their children usually end up giving birth to lots and lots of atheists. Or pagans or Satanists or whatever. I've seen this time and time again. The liberal Christians and so forth, they actually have a higher retention rate, because to them religion isn't something that's forced on you. Negative, you have a negative constant worldview of evil, evil, evil. To them it's family and friends getting together for a picnic. To them it's something good. To a child of some zealot family that constantly rants about gay people and abortion, they'll either end up completely indoctrinated and be just as crazy as their parents, or they're going to completely forsake it, say, this is lunacy, and they'll go off in the entirely different direction. So it's a polarizing force, essentially, what you see. And I've seen people who are extremely, extremely religious, who have confided to me that they go through the motions to please their family, to please a friend, to please their significant other, because it's part of their culture. In Islam's case, because they'll be beheaded if they don't. They're very, very religious people, or you would think they were very religious. In reality, they're atheists. Or pagans. They might worship the literal devil and be a literal devil worshiper and still go to the mosque or the church because they fear persecution or how people might think that they're a terrible person for disagreeing with the going religion. I don't feel that need. I go around, I make it fairly clear to people, anyone who gets to know me more than superficially knows I don't believe in any gods, I'm not a member of a religion. My own views are extremely eccentric and extremely unique as far as anything like that goes. From psychedelic substances to Satanism, devil worship, and the occult, you can't even really categorize it. I've given up the process of trying. I finally threw away the mantle of Satanism and said, I don't know what to call myself. But other people do feel that need. They feel a need to fit in primarily, and it's only because they feel unconfirmed in their faith, or they're either worried about pissing other humans off, or the society, or they're worried about pissing God off and they feel like, I don't believe in this God. I have to atone for this sin because surely God must exist. The Bible talks about hell. I'll go to hell. I'll suffer forever. I've got to atone for my sins. So they wrap themselves in layers of religion. They're terrified. Religion, especially heavy-handed, extreme fundamentalist religion, has created waves and waves of mindless zombies who are afraid of their own shadows. They're terrified of hell. They are literally mentally disabled. They have PTSD almost. You could almost argue that they have post-traumatic stress disorder from seeing so many people collapse and speaking in tongues, or from hearing so many lurid descriptions of people being defleshed forever in hell. And the religious people say, well, it's to save their soul. Well, great job. Most of these people are going to be non-believers anyway. You've just made them feel miserable for their entire lives. Which is the ultimate irony of fundamentalism, that it really harms many people, helps very few of them, and the few people that are helped by becoming extremely religious may or may not even believe in that God. And of course, mainly it helps the politicians in their re-election bids because they can say, I'm more Jesus-loving than my opponent, so you should vote for me. Especially if they live in Kansas. Peace out.